welcome. I'm so glad you could all make it. We'll go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Stellan Harris. Welcome to Cooking by the Book. This is the bite-sized brunch session. Thank you all for joining us. I, as always, am joined by the lovely Amanda Showers. Say hello, Amanda. Very happy to have Amanda in the chat. If you have questions, leave them in the chat for Amanda, and she'll either answer them or relay them to me so I may answer them. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to pop up the slideshow presentation that'll get us started for this session. So, as this is right there, this is Cooking by the Book, bite-sized brunch. We'll get to what that means in a bit, but you should have some idea. And don't worry, it'll be great. You'll love it. But as always, this is Cooking by the Book. During this and any future programs, we'll provide you with recipes and live demonstrations to help you expand your culinary skills. We've done desserts, we've done entrees, we've done cheap meals or budget conscious meals and fancier fare. Today will be somewhere in between all of those. In this session, we're going to tell you how to put together a wonderful brunch using a very humble kitchen tool. So Strategize. But of course, as is my pattern, I start with asking you a question. Who doesn't like brunch? Amanda, do you like brunch?
I love
brunch is great. It's the best of both worlds. It's the best of both breakfast and lunch. What more could you ask for? Who doesn't like brunch? Well, me, if I'm cooking. Because brunch is, as a food genre, has a lot of variety. There's a lot of ways you can do a brunch. You can do brunch for a few people. For a lot of people, it's generally better as a fancier meal. In most cases, you will go out to a brunch as a certain air to it. But if you're cooking a brunch, that's an expectation and a lot of baggage that a breakfast doesn't necessarily have. It's not in the same way. When you think of brunch, there are certain ideas that are commonly conjured that breakfast doesn't have. Breakfast can be whatever. Breakfast can be pancakes. It can be cereal. It can be oatmeal. It can be a lot of things. Brunch, though, I think has a bit of a cultural cachet to it, and that makes putting on a brunch kind of a hassle, even one that's just you and some friends. So I generally don't like cooking a brunch. I generally won't make brunch for folks. I'll have a dinner, but brunch is intimidating, even for me. And so what you do if you want to have brunch is you gotta think smart. You gotta act smart. You gotta plan ahead, you gotta strategize. Because if you plan ahead, you can cut down on a lot of the active cooking time that you might have to do otherwise. Everyone likes omelets, but cooking omelets for 4, 5, 6 people, and a lot of time, a lot of attention, and a lot of chopping, and a lot of ways that things go wrong. So you want to eliminate as much of that as possible, get rid of those points of failure, so you'll have a wonderful brunch no matter what. Now, not everything can be made ahead of time. There are certain brunch things that don't do well. Hollandaise can generally be okay, but I don't recommend poaching eggs too far ahead of time. That gets weird. Poached eggs in the fridge, and you always run the risk of them popping. And then you have a big egg mess, and no one likes that in their fridge. So, while some things are difficult to do ahead of time, not impossible, more difficult, there are a lot of traditional brunch meals and brunch dishes that you can do it ahead of time in some form. And to illustrate that, we are going to use a common kitchen tool that is the humble muffin / cupcake tin or pan. I think it's regional. I'm not really sure what the difference is. I've heard both in different press images, but you'll know it. It is depicted on screen. That beautiful tool for birthdays and muffins and all manner of occasions. We're going to use that to make some delicious brunch items. And yes, we are kind of making muffins, but not actually, not the way you mean. While that is generally the realm of the muffin tin, given the name, a muffin tin is actually a great way to make smaller portions of larger dishes. And it doesn't have to be a muffin. It can be sweet, it can be savory, it can be anywhere in between, it can be both. And while you could certainly make muffins in addition to these things we're talking about today, we're not going to make muffins as in like a quick bread to bake and you put, I don't know, blueberries in. But you could put blueberries in one of the recipes, but I still wouldn't call them muffin. But then we're getting into food purism, which it's not an argument I'm going to have today. But I hear you saying, Stellan, you're talking, get to the real meat of it. Well, what are we making today? Well, don't worry, I've got you. We're gonna make 2 things, technically 3. You'll understand in a bit, don't worry. So the first thing we're gonna make is mini spring vegetable frittatas. I thought about doing a quiche, mini quiches, but mini pie crusts can be tricky, and I want this to be easy as pie for you. No pun intended. But all this is going to require is some eggs, salt, pepper, vegetables of your choice. We're going to use asparagus, red bell pepper, cherry tomatoes, and sweet onion. And you could put cheese in these. I don't, but it's really up to taste. I think they are plenty flavorful without the cheese. If you like some cheese in there, that's up to you. Pick your favorite cheese that you would go with these vegetables. You could do something strongly flavored, but I would go with something milder, like a nice Swiss would be good in this. You could go with a classic American for that good old breakfast vibe, but again, that is up to you. And the process of these two recipes is going to be largely similar because I've scaled this down. This is going to make about 6 of these mini frittatas because our muffin pans are tiny because our oven is tiny. But this you can easily scale up for a crowd. You could make 24 of these just by quadrupling this recipe. I would use a dozen eggs, and you would get a pretty similar product no matter what. But you'll preheat your oven and grease your pan. I saute these vegetables ahead of time because I think it helps develop the flavor a bit. You could honestly go in raw. I think it would. I might give the asparagus a little heat just because that'll kind of soften it a bit, make it easier to eat. But again, preference. But after you chop up your vegetables and perhaps cook them, you will combine them in the muffin tins. You'll bake them at 350 for about 20 minutes. Or I like to rotate mine halfway through just to make sure everyone's getting an equal amount of heat. But again, that will depend on your oven. I know ours has some hot spots, so we do that for our own results. But after they're baked and through and they should be set, you're not seeing a lot of liquid kind of seeping out. You might get some because if you don't cook your vegetables, they're going to release some water. And that's to be expected. Don't worry. Just give them a few more minutes until they're set throughout. They'll be springy when pressed. They'll spring back from cooking them. You don't need to do a cake test or anything like that. Just your finger will work fine. And after that, give them a few minutes to cool and pop them out. If you greased your muffin pan beforehand, they'll come out easy, and they're your mini frittatas. Done. And those will keep well in the fridge for at least 3 to 4 days in the fridge, and they freeze for about 3 months. So if you really want to plan ahead, you could do that. Some folks don't like to freeze like scrambled eggs. I think it's fine. I think it's more of a concern with whole eggs, like boiled eggs, those don't, because the whites can get kind of weird. But when they're blended up like this, it's much less of a problem, I find. But that is one dish done. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The second one are mini baked French toast muffins. Listen, calm down. I hear you. Stella, you said we're making muffins. We're not technically. I just didn't know what to call these. They are basically a French toast casserole in muffin form. It's going to be bread soaked in egg and cream and milk with some sweeteners and some spices. And we'll put all that into our cupcake tins, our muffin tins, and bake it for about 20 minutes at 350. These you want to be set completely. You want them to be a little bit golden brown on top. They will stay moist, so don't expect them to be dry because you don't want dry French toast. You want dry French toast, not me. And Amanda neither. So you just want to keep an eye on these. 20 minutes worked for us. If they're still really liquidy and really like falling apart, you might want to give them a little bit more, but 20 minutes helps coagulate all those egg proteins. It stayed bound together when we took them out of the muffin tins. And that's really all there is to it. You can, of course, adjust the seasonings. I use brown sugar and it says cinnamon there. I was out of cinnamon, so I got some pumpkin pie spice. They'll work just fine. There's cinnamon in here. But really, you can customize this to your flavoring. You could use orange, you could use berries, you could use all manner of things to flavor this, like a French toast. I think the only constant would be most folks will use maple syrup to top it. I have some honey today, just as a slightly different flavor profile. But again, it's very simple. The process, as I mentioned, combine your eggs, your milk, the brown sugars, and all that good stuff. Pour it over the bread, let that soak for a little while until it's all got all that goodness soaked up in the bread. It does help if your bread is a bit stale, but we'll get into that once we're in it. And that is all the recipes except, oh wait, there's a bonus recipe. Because what is a brunch without a fancy drink? Now, for those of you who are under the legal drinking age, mimosas don't work for you because of that pesky champagne. But if you are either under 21, excuse me, under 21 and want something like this, this will get you there. I think you want a ginger ale that is very boldly flavored to cut through the orange juice, but it will still be that kind of effervescent orange with some bubbles kind of experience that you might get from a mimosa. And if you're cooking for people who are under 21, this is something you can make a big picture of and have out with some glasses of ice, and folks can serve themselves. And so that's another thing off your list. You don't have to worry about getting folks drinks. But I hear you saying, Stellan, this is all great. Let's get cooking. And I agree. Let's get cooking, friends. All right. So we're going to start with, of course, the French toast. So I have here some bread that I've just cubed, little pieces. This bread is not super fresh. I got it. This is an example. I got this from Walmart, and I just took I'm gonna do half a loaf. I'm gonna give about 6, and that should be a pretty accurate scale for you folks at home. And I just took my knife. You can use a bread knife. I didn't have mine here, but you just want cubes that are about bite size, nothing too big, like maybe an inch across. 1-inch cubes. You could go smaller, but there's not a big reason to. And then what you will want past that is you will want, of course, the milk and the cream spices, which I have pre-mixed here. I've got my sugar in here as well. A little bit of honey too, just for a little extra sweetness. And of course, the spices they'll plumb up. Don't worry. I'm going to do something that will help make those spices a little bit more smooth. So get my eggs, beautiful, large eggs. Use the eggs that you prefer. So I'm going to crack 3 eggs in here. And in order to get in a smooth consistency for my custard, I'm going to use my immersion blender. You do not have to do that. It is nowhere near required. I am doing it mostly for time's sake. It will be just as good with some elbow grease and a whisk as it would be here. So do not feel this is an equipment barrier for you. Anything I'm doing here is easily replicated at home with some manual tools. So I have my 3 eggs here. I'm going to pour in the dairy component. And again, if you do not enjoy dairy, if you can't have dairy, this easily subs for any of your other milks, be that almond milk, soy milk, cashew milk, any of that good stuff. This will work for that too. Pour that in there. Full. Now I'm going to use my immersion blenders. Oh, this is my immersion blender. It is a very handy tool that I don't use enough, so I thought I'd use it for this because it'll make my life a little bit easier. And I'm here, all making life easier. All it is it's a blender on a stick. I can do this, and it goes, makes a noise. It's nowhere near as loud as my mixer, so I don't have to mute for you guys, which I've done in the past. I can avoid this. It is going to make some noise, but it will be nearly as unpleasant. So all you do is, if I've got this, you want a tall vessel if you're using one of these, because you're going to move it up and down to make sure everything gets mixed. I'm going to pop this in here, and I'm going to go up and down. Mix, and there we go. I can go a little bit more. Make sure I got everything. And done. And that's that mix. And that saved me a lot of time with whisking and with making sure that it's evenly incorporated. And that's our custard. It is nice and pale, but speckled with those spices. Spices are more evenly distributed out. Now I'm going to, this is again our bread in a big bowl. I'm just going to pour this over. Now, one thing you will notice is that it will not immediately vanish like magic. You will need to do some stirring. And so all that stirring is, I'm just turning things over, letting the bread soak up all that delicious custard. Because the bread is dry, the bread is porous, the bread wants to hold on to all that liquid. We just need some encouragement. And don't we all? We just need some encouragement from time to time. We do. Wherever. And again, if you do find that your bread is a bit more wet and isn't holding onto liquid quite as well as you'd like, you can always bake it in like a low oven, like 200 degrees for a while. It's going to stale it out a little bit. If it's stale, even better. This is a great use for stale bread, as French toast tends to be. This doesn't need to be a fancy loaf. I just got this because, again, this is a French loaf from Walmart. It was like, this was $2. So nothing fancy at all. And this will make delicious French toast. So making sure everything gets soaked up nice and lovely. My oven is already preheated. Now, as that finishes soaking, let's grab our pan, which is one of these little six muffin tins. I'm gonna go ahead and spray that. Spray. I'm just gonna do a little coat of spray to make sure nothing sticks. Those keen at it at home might notice that a little beat up. And it's because this is slightly too big for our oven. So I had to fold in the edges just a smidge. but don't worry, it will not affect our end products too terribly. All right, about as much as the custard as this is gonna absorb. There's a little bit residual, but not too terribly much. If I wanted to, I could cut some more bread. I don't think we need to. But what I will do now is gonna start loading up the wells. You just want, you don't need to fill them to bursting. Because you don't want everything to get cooked all the way through. I'm just putting in our chunks of soggy bread, soaked up all that delicious sweetness, all that delicious spice. So make sure everything, if you want, make sure everything, you can press it a little bit. Pressing it won't hurt us at all. So the French toast is very forgiving. Amanda, are you a French toast, pancake, or waffle person?
I am a waffle.
Waffle person. Well,
I won't say no to any.
of course, but we all have a preference. Well, being a waffle person is hard. I feel like it's harder to get good waffles without like the equipment.
Very true.
I've gone between, for a long time. I was a very strict French toast person. Like I would eat pancakes, but if offered, I would prefer French toast. And then I started to make my own pancakes more and found a way that I enjoyed them. So I kind of turned around on pancakes. And they're all right. They're not too bad.
I'd say they're third.
Oh yeah. It's all on the record, man. Anti-pancake.
Anti-something.
The pancake. There's I think a higher level of a higher degree of failure in pancakes. I think that it's easier to mess them up. I don't know if that's because they're harder to make or just because they are a bit more chemistry involved, but I will agree with that. All right, so that's going to be our breads. I don't want to stack these too high because again our oven is tiny, but I'm just going to squish everything I can in there. This will all here once the custard bakes. That's sad. Last two there. Big bang boom. I know what you're thinking. Stone, this just looks like a bunch of soggy bread inside a muffin tin. And you're right, that's precisely what it is. But this will become delicious French toast muffin type things. So it's gonna bake for 20 minutes. In the interim, we'll do everything else. So pop it in here. Amanda, would you set me a 10-minute timer? Thank you. So that is those, they will bake and then they will be done and they'll be delicious. Which gives us time to do everything else. So, as mentioned, our mini frittatas are going to have a few components. I have in front of me some asparagus, beautiful asparagus, that I will chop. Amanda, before I chop the asparagus, are you aware of how you cut asparagus? What the common wisdom is?
You can snap at a certain point.
Can. So the fun thing I learned about this is that you don't need to do that. And in fact, you can make asparagus snap wherever. So the common wisdom of you'll bend it and it'll snap where it's good isn't true. It's an old wives' tale. What I would recommend instead is go about an inch and a half up from the woody end and just cut there. So you'll avoid the very tough woody ends of it that are all dried up and gross. You'll have even more asparagus.
You may want to slide your bread
Mhm.
in this direction a little bit.
Oh, thank you. This bread can chill back here. The bread is done its work. So for these asparagus, as I mentioned, I'm just going to cut these. I cut off the ends. I didn't peel these. I got rid of some of those dry outer leaves because those can be a bit weird texturally. But I'm just going to cut these in little coins. Don't want them too thick, but you don't need them like paper thin either. They'll probably roll all around the place. That's okay. I have a big cut board. You can get the ends because I love the florets on asparagus. It'll all go well in our frittatas. Done. I cut the rest of it. I'm going to go turn my skillet on. Let's get preheated. Over medium heat. With that heat up, as I cut everything else. asparagus, done. Everything in my veggie bowl. Next, I will do the onion, I think. And Amanda pointed out that cutting onions can be controversial. There are many methods, many schools of thought. The way I prefer to do mine is I will have them, and then I will make vertical cuts down one side, and then a few lateral cuts. And that gives me a nice fine dice. Because after I've done that, I can just go down, and I have a nice onion. Falls apart nicely. Now it can be a bit annoying if your knife isn't sharp, because it may have a tendency to want to stick or to drag, especially on that lateral cut. That can be a bit annoying. But I think if you have a sharp knife, and if you are having that happen, sharpen your knives. There are many options. Go down to the farmer's market. They will sharpen your knives for you at a reasonable price, and they do very good work. And at the end, you might get some that stick together. You just go down one side, down the other, and opposite. Bing, bang, boom. That is onion done. Now I have red pepper, which I have halved, then cut down on big strips, and then those strips will become a dice. I hope folks aren't expecting some chef level knife skills. This is just basic knife stuff. As I've mentioned before, I am not a professional. I'm an uppity home cook who decided to do this on the internet for fun and profit, but very little profit, mostly fun. And that is my red pepper. And lastly are the cherry tomatoes. I'm not gonna add these to my bowl. I'm gonna add these here. So what I'll do is see if our pan's hot. I'm gonna add a bit of oil. It's hot. Yeah, we're hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil right over here. Don't need much. That swirl around, get nice and warm to conduct that heat. While it's warming up, I'm gonna cut our tomatoes. I'm just gonna have these. You can quarter them if you want them really small. I think they're fine to just have. They're going to release some liquid either way. And there's no reason to be real precious about it. Either way, they'll be delicious. Remember, be very careful, because these guys have a habit of turning knives, and you don't want to lose a finger to a cherry tomato. It'd be a very sad story. I would be very sad. So don't make me sad. And again, just having these. I'm going to do about a dozen for this particular batch. As always, if you're making this for a crowd or more than just 6 people, you could scale this up as per the recipe. I will show again later. But for now, I'm going to go ahead. Check in on our vegetables. Pan's hot, pan's hot. Beautiful sizzle. Now, what I'm going to do is, Amanda, could you wash my spatula for me? Beautiful, thank you. And bowl as well. In the meantime, Sam's a spatula. Gonna move things around, make sure everything is coated in fat when cooking. The bell pepper strips didn't separate all the way. Just gonna go ahead and separate out that. Beautiful. But you don't need to be too precious with this. I'm not gonna do the whole thing. I thought about it, but no. The last thing I need to do is make a mess. That if you are skilled enough to do that, I respect you. I think that's fun to do. But here we're keeping it basic. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish cutting up cherry tomatoes. Again, just having these. You could cut off the ends if you like, but I don't think it's necessary. Again, if you really wanted to go again, you could take this and just cut it again. You get quarters. That is entirely a personal choice. But those are tomatoes done. Now we'll go into the vegetable. Thank you, Amanda. And now the goal here is, of course, to get some color, get some flavor on the vegetables, but also to soften that asparagus a little bit. So that is a very firm vegetable. You can cook it to your desired doneness. I just want to get them a little softer so that they're easier to eat with the soft egg. You want a bit of textural contrast, but you don't want something really hard, crunchy in the particular frittatas. Beautiful. All right. Let me go for a second. Clean as we go, as is always recommended. Wipe up some stuff, some schmutz on the table. Save our local maintenance folks from having to clean up after all of my messes. Yeah. All right. Cooking folks, here cook. We're cooking by the book. Oh, he said the name of the thing.
He did the.
I did the thing. Now these are going. I'm gonna go in with a little salt and pepper. You don't need much. I like to season these both to help them let out some water. You can have as dry vegetable mix as possible. And the seasoned vegetables are good. And if you season them, it's a good, you can tell if they're well seasoned by eating them. You don't have to guess as much. I always recommend tasting your food as you cook, if it's safe. You don't need to taste the raw egg and bread mixture that we made earlier. That's fine. That'll be fun. You don't need to taste that. I cannot in good conscience recommend you do. But this would be fine. This is just vegetables and some olive. All right, these are good. So now, after these have gotten some color on them, they're starting to soften a bit. I'm going to go in with our cherry tomatoes. And I'm going to get these cut side down. And then I'm going to do a radical thing and not touch them. What I want is I want them to kind of blister and burst. So they have all that delicious juice. And they will caramelize a little bit. And then we'll add in a sweet note to our frittata. While cherry tomatoes are our choice for today, they don't need to be cherry tomatoes. Any manner of tomato would work just fine. These will just add a bit of extra sweetness. I should know I am not the biggest fan of cherry tomatoes raw, but I think in something like this, they work very well. I give all my raw ones to Amanda.
I will eat that.
She will. But now that those are all mostly cut side down, I hear you asking, still, how do I know when they're done? Well, after they're heated through, they'll begin to kind of shrink a bit as all that liquid being driven out into the pan. The sound might change a little bit as that water evaporates. And while that's going, you can of course mix everything else. Make sure that's not burning at all. But you want to disturb those tomatoes as little as possible until they start that wonderful wilting process. BEA, beautiful. Yes, I'm just going to let go for a little bit, and we'll come back to that. So, as I mentioned before, there was a third thing, the drink. A timer, beautiful. I'll get back to the drink, don't worry. I'm just going to turn on French toast. Using paper towel because I left my oven at home. Again, I'm just turning this around. Everything is even. Already this mixture is looking a lot less wet because all the liquid is being absorbed and the heat is slowly caramelizing everything. Really delicious. Please set a 2-minute timer, Amanda. Beautiful. Yes, I was talking about the drink. Now, the drink is something that, again, is pretty simple. Something that would be easy to mix up. You're going to use very simple ingredients. This is a jug of orange juice, a 2-liter of ginger ale. I think if you want to up the ante, there's easy ways to do that is squeeze your own orange juice, buy very nice ginger ale, and that will certainly affect things. But again, it's not required. The goal of this is to give you something that you can work off of, a template, as many of our programs are, for your own home cooking. And now those tomatoes have shriveled wonderfly. Ooh, some of them caramelized, those are delicious. And this is our vegetable filling almost entirely done. So I'm gonna let this go for just a little while longer. Actually, this is fine. Let's not get over ambitious, folks. Let's not let this burn in my quest for perfectly tender vegetables. It'll be fine. I'm gonna bake this for 20 minutes. Into our veggie bowl. Look at that. We've saved a dish 3 times. It's all just vegetables. There's a few minor particulates of raw asparagus. You'll survive. It'll be fine. It will appreciably affect our dish. And boom. That is going to be the only time we're gonna use our soap. So we're gonna turn it off. Now we have mix that I will show you up close, just to give you an idea of what that looks like with camera 2. That's right, camera 2, not camera 2.5. Camera 2's larger brother, but we do still have camera 2. So let's go to camera 2 and see what we can see. Hello, again, camera 2. So this is our vegetable mix. As I mentioned, those tomatoes have get caught in steam. Those tomatoes have shrunken a little bit. You see the skin's a little bit baggy on those. So caramelized. The asparagus has changed in color slightly. Those onions are, well, not caramelized, have been deeply sweated. They've taken on some color of their own. The bell pepper as well. It's taken a little bit of color. You don't need those to be cooked all the way through, but it is an easy way for folks to add some more flavor. And of course, as I mentioned, you can skip that step if you like. It will lead to a slightly different taste, a perhaps fresher frittata that will have even a bit more liquidy, so you might need to worry about the liquid content, but it'll be fine. So now what we do is I'm going to go to this one. So I use that one for the sweet. This is our savory egg cup. So I'm going to take again 3 eggs. Which tends to be the magic number. You could do more. You could do a little bit less and add some milk. That's something I've done in the past to add some luxuriousness to it. Heavy cream as well. It's great. But that is going to change the liquid content. And for this recipe, I'm going to keep that as simple as possible. 3 eggs. Now, as with our vegetables, we're going to season again. But because I know we put salt in it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to taste it to know if I need a lot more salt in it, because our egg is going to be unsalted. So, that's nice and salty. You don't need much salt at all. In fact, I don't think I might put a little bit, a little tiny shake, but we don't need much salt because we salted beforehand. Yeah, just a little bit of salt. I'm going to put some pepper in there as well, because I like my egg lots of pepper. But that is, of course, personal preference. You think about black pepper, isn't it? And yes.
I feel like I'm at Olive Garden.
Say when. All right. And again, I'm gonna go ahead and bust out a trusty immersion blender. Not necessary. Whisk will work just fine. Wipe off some of that custard. We don't want to mix such sweet and savory too terribly much. The beef frittata is going to be a little sweet. We don't want it sugar sweet. That's an assessment. So this is just eggs, salt, pepper. There we go. We'll do this. 2. I'm going to go ahead and grab our second muffin tin. We're going to give that a spray. Just to make sure nothing sticks, because these are the guys you really want to watch out for. These guys, you don't spray, will stick. And they'll kind of stick even with spray, but just be ready to clean them. The French toast are a bit better for being away clean. But because it's egg, it's going to get into all those nooks and crannies. If like ours is a bit steamy textured, you want to be aware of that. Now, what we'll do is I'm going to fill these. Not all, you don't want these overflowing because you also have to account for egg, but you can fill these 3/4 of the way full, I would wager. So pretty full, but not bursting out of the seams. You want to try and get a nice variety, get some asparagus, some onion, some pepper, some tomato. Get that nice bevy of spring flavors. What goes in your omelets?
I mean, a lot of what you have right there. Actually, I have a big bell pepper, onion. I haven't really thought about asparagus. That sounds very good.
It's not something I've had a lot of in omelets, but it's an underrated vegetable. Most of my asparagus consumption is with like roasted or charred asparagus, with like a steak or something like that. But I think in this time of year when asparagus is kind of coming into season, it's something to consider. All right, so that is going to be on those. I don't want to fill them up too much more. A little bit to this guy. That is most of our filling. There's a little bit left, but Super much. And now all you gotta do is you take your egg. You will fill it up just until it comes up. The vegetables, because it's going to rise a bit as it cooks. You really don't need much egg at all. Use just one enough that it'll bind together when it cooks. So. And again, you don't want to fill this right up to the top because then it will overflow and it'll be a huge mess. You'll be sad and you're like, why did that guy at the library program tell me to fill it all the way to the top? How could he do this? And I'll say, but I didn't. I tried to warn you. Then I'll be sad. So don't fill it all the way to the top. About most of the way to the top, and then give yourself a little bit of leeway at the very end. That is good. That is all you need to do to bake those. Amanda, how's our timer?
About 2.5 minutes left.
Perfect. Give us enough time to whip up a few things. Amanda, would you do me two favors? Would you wash this? And would you guys with this? In fact, you can put the ice in there. Perfect. Because now we're going to move on to our drinks. As I've mentioned before, this drink is pretty simple, but it'll be tasty, I believe, and it will nicely complement the whole meal. So we're going to go ahead and grab our orange juice and our ginger ale. We want to have ourselves a nice lovely beverage. Now, just to go back to our presentation for a moment, I want to give you those ratios again because they are so nice. And also flash the recipes as well. So we'll go ahead and this is the recipe for the frittatas. Again, very simple, very straightforward. Customize those vegetables as you like. And you'll bake them for 350, about 20 minutes. But still, you have to bake those. Don't worry. We'll have some TV magic for it. But that is going to be that. And then the recipe for the mini French toasts is a very similar setup. There's going to be a nice time. And most importantly, as you'll take your screenshots of this, enjoy. Now, we're going to go ahead and talk about the non-alcoholic brunch sparkler, as I'm calling it. Do my best to use cooking blog terminology. It's not a fig mose, it's a brunch sparkler.
Brunch sparkler.
I know, doesn't it sound so fancy? Someone can pay $10 for it on a brunch menu. I know I would, but our ratio here, because I did want to do ratio to make it easier to scale up, is 2 parts ginger ale to 1 part orange juice. So let's get back to the full screen. Hello, welcome back. So I have my 2 glasses here. Put some ice in them. Ice in 2 glasses. Beautiful. And so our ratio is what I'm at?
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Which one was which?
2 parts ginger ale, 1 part orange. Open up ginger ale. What we'll do is I'll do 1 cup ginger ale. Delicious, effervescent, slightly spicy, slightly spillable ginger ale. That's why we have paper towels, folks. Always be prepared. Is that what I think it is? Oh, it is time. Hold right there, spill. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and grab those beautiful French toasts. I believe that, oh yes, they are done. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Those will cool for a bit. As I clean up a bit of spilled ginger ale. Because cooking is a messy business, folks. It happens to the best of us. And also me. I'm not the best of us. Again, as I've said multiple times, I'm just like you. It's just like us. Cooking at home, spilling ginger ale in front of people. So let's see if I've got a little more. If I hadn't spilled, it would have been exactly a cup. That's how it goes, folks. But don't. A little bit. There we go. And then we will do half cup orange juice. Shake up your orange juice if you're using it from a carton or a jug. If you're doing it at home, oh, even better. Oh, I say even better. I don't envy all the squeezing you have to do, but a great thing for children and young people to do. Get the whole family involved. or the extended family, you've got it over for brunch. Beautiful. Just do a little mix. Make sure everything's nice and incorporated. And then turn into our lens. Look at that. Again, easy $10-12 on a brunch menu. That's how much you save. And that's our drink. So we have.
Even too.
Thank you. Food service experience, folks. Used to pouring drinks for people. I did never get as good as folks who can like do it one-handed. Like that's extremely impressive. Did never get there, but we got pretty close. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven. Because as I mentioned, these will bake for about 20 minutes, just like the French toast did. Scooch that over. Hot, 350 for 20 minutes. Then, it's a little bit big, but we here, pick my book. Just. Now you're saying, so French toast is done, and the drink is done. What about the frittatas? Well, Amanda, what are the early lessons about how we do brunch?
Plan ahead.
We plan ahead, and so I baked some in advance. And so we have a few right here. Beautiful. These I left the cherry tomatoes out. But then not because I dislike them, just because I forgot they were upstairs. I was cooking my vegetables. But they'll be delicious nonetheless. So now we have a delicious drink, a delicious savory entree, a delicious sweet serving. So let's go ahead and unmold one of these French toast muffins. They're generally pretty good about coming out easily. But you want to drag, you'll tool around the edge, and then they come up like that. Beautiful, cohesive. I like these that have a little bit darker on top, so be nice and toasty and flavorful. You can serve these with fresh fruit. So serve these, of course, with a number of toppings. We have, of course, on the frittatas. Don't worry, camera 2 will get a nice look here in a second. I wouldn't leave you like this without a nice close-up look at what our hard work has done. Beautiful, beautiful. And these are rather pretty. So if you're cooking for the gram, you can definitely do worse. Let's go ahead. We'll give you a look, and then we'll give Amanda a taste. Camera 2. Here we go. Ooh. Beautiful. Look at that. Got nice and toasty, a little bit darker on top. Some would say burned. I think that's perfect. Nice textural contrast. And you see the bottom is soft and delicious. Still moist, but not wet. You know, it's cooked all the way through. Beautiful. All right. Now comes the moment of truth. Do a little honey because I left the maple syrup at home. And this will do just as well. Just do a little bit of a drizzle. It is already a little bit sweet. Beautiful. All right, Amanda.
Yes.
It is time for Amanda. Welcome to my brunch. Hey, happy to have you. Have a drink.
Oh, so good. So prepared.
Oh, I'm so prepared. It was so easy. All right.
You want me to try this?
Oh, I mean, what would you like to start?
Savory.
Fair enough. This is peppers, onions, and asparagus. Of course, because I was so prepared.
Great.
Isn't it? And it was so easy. And I'm making more right now for when everyone else gets here. So easy. Isn't it? It's not too heavy, it's not too heavily flavored, but it does add a nice textural contrast. You can definitely taste it. Do you miss the cheese?
A little, because I could eat a block of cheese if I wanted to,
That's a good point.
So-
I'm a big cheese fan,
but
but
it's very good.
It is. That's yours. Let's do
The sweet,
the sweet, the French toast.
have savory and sweet.
Of course, of course. And there you are. Still warm, fresh out of the oven.
This is fun too. It's kind of like.
It is kind of
you
like a
can
monkey. It's kind of a monkey bread situation as well. So again, fun for the young folks. I mean, what's the verdict on taste? 10 out of 10, folks.
I took a big bite, but
It's speechless. Rendered a man speechless. Can't speak. You guys good for not being able to speak? Nice drink. Well, wash that down. Yeah. Oh, you're so kind.
cheers.
Thank you. Yes, of course. Cheers. Mm,
That is actually pretty good.
isn't it?
It reminds me of the most. So,
See? You keen ear viewers are like, it's actually pretty good. Man, it wasn't sure.
I'm sure I've had many sauces,
Mhm.
but I would drink this.
See? Proofs in the pudding, folks.
Take my treats.
Thank you. Of course, enjoy.
Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. All right, folks, let's go ahead and go towards the end of our program. Go back to my presentation. So, as always, as we do at the end of every program, I will thank you for joining us. This has been Cooking by the Book. We hope that you've enjoyed the program, learned some new tricks for your own kitchen, put on a brunch this weekend, perhaps. Who knows? But now you are armed with a few tips and tricks to make that a little bit easier. I hope that you will enjoy some future culinary programming put on by Daniel Regional Library. And of course, folks, I would like to thank you personally. I do have a bit of sad news because this will be the last time I do this with you specifically. Unfortunately, my time with Daniel Regional Library is coming to an end. I'm very sad.
I'm sad too.
Amanda is also very sad. We're all very sad, but I'm excited for what comes next. And I would like to again thank all of you for joining me on this wonderful ride. If you had told me a year and a half ago that I would be putting on a monthly cooking program, I would have been very confused, but it has worked out so well. I've had so much fun with all of you. I hope that you all have learned some valuable lessons, because at the end of the day, that is what this program is for. I wanted to turn one of my passions into something that folks could use, and be helpful, that would be fun. And I hope that I've been able to accomplish all of that. But unfortunately, our time does draw to a close. So I will say once again, thank you for everything. This has been wonderful. And I hope you will join for future culinary programming. Don't worry, folks, it doesn't end with me. There are multiple other things in the works, other food-based programming, both over Zoom and in person, that we are hoping to put on in the future. So if you have joined us for all this time, I hope you continue to join us programming on this and other wonderful programming here at Daniel Regional Library. But I will say once again, have a wonderful night. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, what question?
Oh, question, please.
Access the recipes.
Recipes, I'll put them back on the screen for you. That is something I can easily do. There you are. Scroll back through. So this is a recipe for our frittatas. Take some time, do a screenshot, all of this. And this recording will be up on our YouTube channel in the near future. There's also a place that you can get this. But if you were curious, this is the recipe for the frittatas. Take some time, write them down, or take a screenshot on a computer, or wait a few days for the recording. Give a few more seconds, we'll switch recipes. But this is for the French toast muffins. Again, take some time, take some screenshots, and enjoy a nice sip of my beverage. The delicious Mimosa brunch beverage. It's good, folks. I don't tell you. Surprisingly good. And lastly, for that brunch beverage, this one is the most simple: 2 parts ginger ale, 1 part orange juice over ice. You could mix that up. You could add some more to it, maybe some pineapple juice, do some special stuff, but it's fine as is. It'll get better with fresh squeezed orange juice, and with slightly spicier or more complex ginger ale will also kind of bump that up. But at its base, it is a nice little juice cocktail. All right. I think that will do us. Any last questions?
You will definitely be missed.
Oh, thank you. I will miss all of you as well. And I hope that you will have wonderful Memorial Day weekends. And have a good night.